What's up, guys? It's time for happy hour. How's everybody doing today? It's time to get something in your glass. It's time to celebrate the end of Tuesday. What is up, my people? Today we are going to transport ourselves to Tasmania. But first, I want to know who's here, what are you drinking, where are you located? If you're a first timer, throw 3 stars in there because we want to shout you out. Cheers, guys. Happy hour. Woo. Oh man, I'm so glad Tuesday is over, guys. It's happy hour, good music. Gonna have some fun today. Let's check in with a few folks in the comments. Rick, checking in from Tulsa with some Trivia Drag from Mount Veeder. All right, I like it. And what is up from Canyon Lake? Brian, good to see you. Eric in Fredericksburg. Eric and Andrea in Fredericksburg having vanilla rum and Dr. Pepper. Okay, it's that kind of Tuesday. I see you. I see you. Alta Poolside from Frisco with some 17s in. Chilled. That is what's up. You're going to see condensation on my bottle. That's because I've been chilling it. So you're doing it right. I like it. Sarah, having beer at the beach. What is up? Thanks for joining us at happy hour from the beach. Come on now. I love it. Asha and Eric having some Paka Zinfandel in San Antonio. Y'all got the memo. I love it. People drink what I'm drinking. Doug, happy hour, bro. It's good to see your name in there. Alan from Sugarland having some Sangria Rosé. Y'all, this song every time during quarantine, it's just been like pretty much on repeat. Gets me going, makes me feel good. It's called Sunday Best, in case you were wondering. Ooh, Susan having some Michelob Ultra in South Austin. Terry with some Mouvec Carignan. Pam, what is up? Nothing yet. Pam, you need to fix that. Get something in your glass. All right, guys, the music ends. It's usually time to get us kicked off today. Hopefully you are seeing the beautiful picture that I have next to my face here. Y'all, Tasmania, though I have never been, from everything that I've seen, studied, read, heard about, is spectacular. Look at that view. I mean, I'm going to shrink my face for a sec. Look at that, guys. That is a resort in Tasmania in the foreground. That is an actual place you can go stay. We're going to get all kinds of into the deep goodness about Tasmanian wine today. So hopefully you're going to learn a thing or two. But guys, I'm super stoked to hang and to talk to you about Tasmania. But let's first, all cheers, guys. It's the end of Tuesday, July 7th. You made it. Happy hour. And let's talk about the William Chris wine before we jump into Tasmania today. Guys, let me take down my little Tasmania picture because we're going to get there. Yes, I am nicknamed Tazzy Thompson today. Tazzy is the Australian slang term for Tasmania. So Tazzy Thompson it is today, guys. Zinfandel, Paka Family Vineyard from the Texas High Plains, 2017, incredible vintage. Y'all, I'm not going to lie. This is one of my favorite red wines that William Chris has produced. I think Zinfandel can be like big and alcoholic and juicy and jammy and kind of over the top in a lot of climates and a lot of producers' hands. And this is made in, I think, a very like balanced way. You know, it's 14.5 alcohol, so it didn't shoot super high up there. And it's got great acidity. I'm gonna pour me some more because I actually really love this wine. You know, there's some wines I have on happy hour that I like, but I don't like really like. This I really like capital REALLY, really. Little slurp, guys. Okay, so here's the cool thing about Zinfandel. The clusters usually ripen. I got some mosquito friends with me today. The clusters usually ripen at the berries on the cluster unevenly. And so you'll get some that are like super ripe, some that are like kind of Goldilocks just right, and then some that are underripe. And so a lot of times that shows up in the glass and you get both like a little bit of like tart underripe fruit, and then you also get like the more like full jammy baked almost fruit. And so for me in this wine, I get some of that underripeness, so like tart red fruit, but then I think you're also getting some of the like rich, I would even call it like jammy kind of plum, blackberry, but like rich, like where you would find like in a pie almost. This is all neutral oak, so it's really not a lot of presence of oak spice or oak tannin here. I call this probably medium body, maybe medium plus. Just a touch of tannin here from the skins of the grape, not super overblown tannin. Now, let's talk about food for a sec. Y'all know we talked about this last week with one of the most classic pairings of the grill is Zinfandel and barbecue pork ribs. And that's if you're going to do the barbecue pork ribs where you kind of slather it with the sticky, tangy barbecue sauce style. Zinfandel barbecue ribs that's been slathered in barbecue sauce are ideal. Now, I'm going to give you a new one here, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about today. Texas style beef chili, which means no beans, guys. Texas style beef chili, Frito pie, or chili dogs. Okay, so it's kind of hot for just like chili by itself. Like if this is in the fall or the winter, maybe I'd be recommending that. But for right now, I want a Texas style beef chili Frito pie or a chili dog, and this would go killer. Chili and Zinfandel always do it for me. It's just a great pairing. So if you have access to make a Frito pie with Texas style chili or a chili dog, I do highly recommend it. Maybe you have some like leftover grilled dogs from 4th of July. Woo, man. But yeah, definitely no beans. I'm all about the no beans situation with my chili because I'm from Texas and that's the way we do it. Okay. All right, guys, that's the William Chris wine for today. Cheers to all of you. Let's all take another drink. I'm going to check in again. Asha, I don't know if you're kidding here, but in case, for those of you out there who don't know what a Frito pie is, it's basically a bed of Frito-Lay chips, like the corn chips, right? And then you pour the chili on top, or you heap the chili on top, and then you can put all the great mix-ins that you normally put on chili. So it's kind of like nachos, but with Frito-Lay Fritos, corn chips, and you could do like cheddar cheese. I do like scallions. I like chopped scallions or cilantro to give it a nice little bite. You can do sour cream, cheddar cheese. I mean, you can go all out if you want to like step it up a notch. You can do like Mexican style Frito pie and kind of do salsa, sour cream, cilantro. You could do like all American, like I kind of just described, with like just cheddar cheese, maybe a dollop of sour cream, because I'm a huge sour cream fan, if you can't tell. But guys, you could, Alta is giving this, try it with jalapeno Frito chips. That's a new one to me. That's a pro tip right there. Thank you, Alta, for that. Yes, and if you grew up in Texas, like you know that like Friday Night Lights at the high school football game, this is the #1 order from the concession stand. Like if you want to hack it and get the best thing possible, it's usually the Frito pie. And a lot of times you'll find that like some mom somewhere cooked up like her home style chili to put on the Frito pie, and it's like always the best. So anyway, that was a legit question, and I'm happy that we could share Frito pie-ness with you because it is special and you should try it. And it's like cheap and delicious and great and goes really good with Paka Zen. So anywho, all right, guys, let's nerd out with Tasmania today. Okay, guys, y'all know this week I want to transport us because I am missing some summer vacation travel. Y'all, at this point in the year, I've usually already gone on like 2 to 3 trips, international trips, and obviously that hasn't been happening. And so if you're just joining us for the first time this week, so we had it yesterday, we're going to be transporting ourselves to famous summer vacation spots that also happen to be great wine regions. And today we're going to talk about Tassie or Tasmania. Okay, so be thinking about what questions you have. We're going to talk about all things Tasmania wine related. I might not know it. Tasmania is still a region that I continue to study. It was actually on my level 3 SOM certification exam. One of those like seriously, for an essay question, you're gonna ask me about Tasmanian wine production? Like, whew, guys, it was not an easy question. Luckily, I did fine on it. I had actually studied at the last minute. I had read up on, I was like, there maybe, who knows, they're gonna ask me about Tasmanian sparkling wine. Sure enough, Tasmanian sparkling wine ended up on my test, guys. So let me share a picture. First of all, there are going to be 3 things you need to know about Tasmania today. You know how I love to do that. So thing 1 is kind of the obvious thing, but I'm bringing it up for a very specific reason. You know, I think a lot of times we think we remember where places are and like what proximity they have to other well-known spots. So like this might seem obvious, but I'm going to pull up a map and show everybody, guys. Tasmania is a wine region located on Tasmania Island, which is south of mainland Australia. But right, it's an island off of an island because Australia itself is a giant island. So I'm calling it mainland Australia. It's a tiny island off the coast of the big island. Okay, so let's look at a map. You know me, I love to help you guys out here. Make sure this is oh nope, that's not the right one. Sorry about it, guys. Let's see. It is under the other screenshot. Uno memento, pulled up the wrong picture. My bad, guys. Take another drink while we're waiting on me to pull this up. You know. All right, there we go. That is the picture, and let's make it big. And I'm gonna take this down. All right, so here's Australia, guys. You forgot what it looks like. Y'all see that blue dot that's right there? That blue dot is about where Sydney is located. So if you're familiar with Sydney, that's about where Sydney's located. Very approximate. And then that little tiny island off the coast of the south of Australia is Tasmania. You'll notice that it shares similar latitude with the South Island of New Zealand. Okay, the South Island of New Zealand is considered basically the southernmost wine growing region in the world. Okay, so if it's pretty much on the same latitude, Tasmania is really, really far south. Okay, really far south. So let's think about, if you're really far south, we're really getting close to what continent or what like well-known ice-covered landmass? Anybody? Bueller? Antarctica. Okay, guys. So when we're talking about Tasmania, we need to be thinking very cool climate. Okay. I do want to show you what it looks like there. So why would we want to be vacationing there, D? Like, we don't want to vacation in Antarctica for a summer vacay. Well, that's because, let me show you this picture, and then you're going to be like, oh, I totes get it. Yes, I just said totes. I mean, come on, y'all. You can have mountains next to a white sand beach and hang out with like little miniature kangaroos, or also known as wallabies. Okay. I mean, come on. How stinking cool is that? Where else in the world do you get to do that than Australia? And specifically, Tasmania has this awesome mountain range. And we're actually going to talk about that kind of helps protect some of the inland regions from the harsh elements that all these bodies of water bring. And so, y'all, for real, like, it's crazy that you could hang out with little wallabies on the beach and get some sun and drive a little bit of ways and have some wine. Woo, I'm in this. Like, so hopefully this just kind of convinced you. So let's talk a little bit about Tasmanian wine, because it's still talking about it's a wine region. That's thing number 1. Okay, so let me just dive in a little bit here. So about a fourth, or about 25% of all visitors to Tasmania, excuse me, gotta take a drink. It's hot, I'm sweating. 25% approximately of all visitors to Tasmania visit wineries. Can you believe that? Like, 1 in every 4 tourists who visits Tasmania goes to a winery. So the winery visiting culture is huge here. So if we're gonna go on a summer vacay right now, like, we're gonna do that. Now, we're gonna get to this later, but like, the weather right now is not summer. Like, they're in the heart of winter right now because they're in the southern hemisphere. But I'm not gonna get ahead of myself because we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. All right. The region, the wine region, really took off in the 1950s when you had some European transplants beginning to think about the similarities to soils and climates in parts of Europe, and specifically the soils and climates of the Champagne region and of the Rheingau region in Germany. And so when we start to think about grape growing and winemaking, we're going to start to think about those similar styles of wine, right? So what are we going to be talking about? This is going to be thing number 2. If the soils and climates are similar to those of Champagne and to the Rheingau region of Germany, can anybody guess what kinds of grapes they're going to be growing? Not necessarily yet what kind of wine, but what kind of grapes are they going to be growing? And I'm going to tell you, that's going to be thing 2. Anybody? Anybody? I'm gonna let it sit. Little teacher wait time. Have a drink. All right, now I got to tell you, we've waited long enough. Thing 2, Tasmania is making some of the highest quality cool climate wines in the world, especially sparkling. Okay, so when I say cool climate wines, we're talking about things like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Riesling, and Pinot Gris. Those are kind of the big 4 that Tasmania is known for. I'll say it one more time. And it looks like you guys are catching up here. Pinot Noir, Riesling, Chard, and I'm going to add Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris also grows really well there, and they grow a lot of it. All right. Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are at the heart of sparkling wine production. They do also, I see some people saying Meunier. They do also grow small amounts of Meunier to get that like Champagne variety trifecta, which is Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Meunier. They're really, though, focused on Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in their sparkling wines. And their sparkling wines constitute 40% of production of all wine in Tasmania. Can you believe that? Like, this is a very sparkling wine focused region. Okay. Super cool climate, very focused on sparkling wine. That also means that the bottles are generally going to be more expensive. So there is not, I don't think a single wine, like the average cost of a bottle of wine under $15 doesn't really exist in Tasmania. So like you go to mainland Australia, if you want to call it that, the continental part, and that part of Australia, they have a lot of like low end budget wines, like grocery store wines. Those don't exist in Tasmania. It's all premium quality and really good sparkling. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about the grape growing environment. You saw those mountains, and let me see if I can pull up one more picture of some vineyard situations. So let me share one more screen because it's important to understand. Let me make sure I pull up the right one again this time. Share screen. The one called Tasmania Vineyards. Okay, here we go. So check this out, guys. Y'all see in the foreground, and maybe if I move my little prompt here, you can see these vineyards that go right up against the coast, right? They also have lakes there. And then those mountains in the back are actually what shield the vineyards and the valleys where they're growing a lot of these grapes from the intense weather that comes from all the seas and the oceans and stuff that surround the island. Okay. Now, the proximity to water also helps moderate the climate. So it doesn't get too extreme. It doesn't get too hot in the summer or too cold in the winter. And they get a lot of sunshine. So plenty of time to get great ripeness from the grapes, but it's still a pretty cool region because of the latitude. And so you're not going to do like super sweltering stuff. Yes, for those of you who are sparkling fans, this is another great region you need to know about. Last week, we talked about England sparkling wines, and those are super high quality. Tasmania is like even less known than some of the English sparkling wines right now and are so good. I also really love the Rieslings from here. I've had the opportunity to have a couple of Rieslings. I haven't yet had any still Pinot Noirs. Okay, so that's the grapes. Let me check in, guys. Cheers. Let's all take a break. I'm gonna see if there's any questions before I do thing number 3. Ba-ba-da-ba. Oh man, this Paka Zin is really opening up nicely. I don't know about you guys, starting to get that bramble note, kind of like if you get some pie situation. So I'm thinking like more blackberry or black cherry pie. Super nice right now. Yes, the Tasmanian Devil is from there. It's As Sarah was asking, anyone know what marsupial is only found in Tasmania? Brian, I think, with the win here. Any other questions in here? Yep, Chardonnay and Riesling. You guys mostly got all of this. Tons and tons of great wine excursions that we can take. So Alan's asking, not sure if I've ever seen a Tasmanian wine in stores here. Is it available? Or do you have to go there to get it? Okay, so like, let's just pretend that we have to go there to get it. And so like, it'll force us to all go on a trip there together. No, Alan, I will have some producer names to look for that you can get here stateside, and specifically ones I know that are available in Texas. So I'll talk about that at the end as your bonus. This is a big one. Yep, tons of great water. Guys, this Tasmania is frequently talked about as like this pristine environment. That it's got super fresh air and super clean water, and it's just a great place to go and visit and be outdoors, which also makes it great for agriculture. Cool? Yes, absolutely a trip. Let's talk about thing 3. I'm gonna take a drink while we're about to pull up thing 3. Now, thing 3 is gonna require a little bit of your brain, okay? So if you haven't been like really logged in here, I'm gonna need you to actually use your critical thinking skills. Because this is sometimes a little bit hard for people to grasp, all right? Thing 3, because it's in the Southern Hemisphere, Tasmanian wines with the same vintage date, so for example, 2017, are 6 months older than Northern Hemisphere wines with that same vintage date. So one more time, let it soak in, take a drink, focus for a sec. I have a 2017 wine from Tasmania, and I hold that up to this Paka Zin from 2017. The Tasmanian 2017 is automatically going to be 6 months older than the Northern Hemisphere version from the same year. Anybody want to take a gander as to why? Well, by this point, you probably figured that out. We likely don't want to be traveling to Tasmania in this moment, and that's because it's very cold there right now. We're getting into the heart of our summer, and that means being in the Southern Hemisphere, they're getting to the heart of their winter. So harvest begins in March. Okay, so usually, and this fluxes, and in Texas, we're unique because we're quite warm. But generally, we talk about harvest beginning in September. Okay, Texas, for William Chris, it's like usually July, August. But usually September is kind of thrown around as like the harvest month for the Northern Hemisphere, just as an average. And so March is the Southern Hemisphere average harvest date. Okay, so the 3rd month of the year, March, is happening. The same stuff in the vineyard is going on that happens in the 9th month in the Northern Hemisphere. All right, March versus September is how you can think of that. Or you can just always think like, if something's happening where I live in the Northern Hemisphere, add or subtract 6 months from that, and the same thing is going on in the vineyard. So if for us, bud break happens in March, that means bud break for Southern Hemisphere is going to happen in September. Okay, so it also means because they're harvesting earlier, they're going to bottle earlier in the same year. So it's actually kind of cool because you get an extra 6 months of bottle aging, right? If you're buying an Australian wine or a Chilean wine or an Argentinian wine or a South African wine from the same year, it's automatically gonna have 6 more months of age on that bottle. So something fun to think about. And remember, if you're buying a Southern Hemisphere wine, they're going to have an earlier harvest, and that means their wines are naturally 6 months older. Okay, the more you know, guys, the more you know. As always, I love to share what I like to drink from these new regions that I'm introducing you to. I don't know how many of those of you have actually had a Tasmanian wine. So like raise your hand if so, or say I've had one, I loved it, or I think I might have had one at one time. Or so let's talk about who you should go try. And I'm going to give you different producers for different categories, just because I want to. And it gives you something to go explore. Get one from each of these producers, okay? So again, 40% of all production in Tasmania is sparkling. And so I really want you to go find Jantz sparkling wines. Okay, Jantz, Jansz. Really cool. They've got a Z in their name anyway. Jantz sparkling. I really love their rosé. Okay, their rosé sparkling. I think it's probably one of the best sparklings out there. They're not at the same price point as champagne is, or even the English sparklings. English sparkling and champagne are both more expensive than the same style of wines coming out of Tasmania. So go find Tasmania. It's going to be a great, fun little, bring it to the party, bring it to dinner, and surprise folks like, hey, we're going to have wine from Tasmania today, and it's really delicious sparkling. Second is Pressing Matters, which is really focused on Riesling production. This is a Riesling that I've had that I know is distributed here in Texas. I love it. It's delicious. Check them out. They're doing really cool stuff with another great cold weather grape. And then lastly, I've had the chance once to have Pinot Noir from Tasmania. So, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are main components of the sparkling wine situation. So they also make still versions of it. And I'm totally going to mispronounce this because my French isn't great. Maison L'Envoi. I don't know. So they make very delicious still Pinot Noir. So Jantz for sparkling, Pressing Matters for Riesling, and Maison L'Envoi for Pinot Noir. All great Tasmanian producers that you should be able to find here in Texas. So go get them. Yes, cheaper bubbles. Yes, 6 months older. Like, what else do you need? And it's soup. That cool climate keeps the acid really nice. It's a great food wine. I mean, if I could just drink bubbles for forever, like I wouldn't hate that. Okay. Let's ask this. So Jeffrey's asking, will vintages differ greatly from year to year? That's a good question. So with sparkling production, you don't have to worry about that as much, just because they're non-vintage most of the time. So they can kind of keep consistency like champagne is famous for doing. They usually don't put vintage dates on there because they've had issues with consistency of ripening and maladies of the vine and bad weather and frosts and hail and all those kind of, sometimes mildew. So this is something good to think about because it is a more extreme climate, because it's so far south. You could see some pretty significant vintage variation. So if you're the kind of person who really loves like the Burgundy world where you're like thinking about your Pinot Noir Chardonnay and what year, this is actually a place that you probably do need to pay a little bit of attention. Now, the non-vintage sparklings, you don't have to worry about that just because they're going to cover any bad vintages by mixing multiple vintages together to produce consistent quality in their sparkling. So sparkling, you don't worry about it. Pinot Noir and Chardonnay production, you probably need to think about the vintage. And you can always, guys, if you're getting wine from a region that has a lot of vintage variation or like has issues with consistency because the climates are a little more extreme, you can always just Google a vintage chart. Just type in like vintage chart and then like the name of the region. Now, Tasmania might be a little more difficult to find, but they actually have a great winery association in Tasmania. It's like the Tasmania Wine Growers Association, essentially. And you can actually go to their website and either find the info on their website or write them an email, and they're great about it. Like Australia is really doing the wine tourism thing well and making information really accessible to the consumer. And they're really responsive to reach out to customers. So love that. Alta's asking a good question. Is the Riesling on the sweeter or dry side? Definitely on the dry side, Alta. So guys, let me tell you this, and I hopefully we'll end this myth for all of you for the rest of time. The overwhelming majority of Riesling production in the world is on the dry side, not on the sweet side. Okay, guys? Overwhelming majority. That goes for the Mosel in Germany. That goes for the Pacific Northwest in the US, the Finger Lakes in New York, Tasmania, Eden and Clare Valley in Australia. Guys, all of these places are making Riesling. The majority of production, like overwhelming majority of production, is on the drier side. Now, do they make sweet styles? Yes. They're just more the exception. They constitute a smaller percentage of production. They're more expensive to make. The consumer demand is lower for sweeter styles these days. And so it's just really important for you to remember, if it's a high quality Riesling producing region anywhere in the world. The majority of them are going to be on the drier side. So Alta, I'm so glad you asked this question so I could remind everybody of that, and reiterate here in Tasmania, the same holds true. So drier style Rieslings that are going to have a really nice sharp acidity. I think they're wonderful. Okay, guys, there's a lot of information about Tassie. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've loved it. Let's see, I'm going to pull up one more picture because I had this beautiful vineyard picture I want to show you. I'm going to leave you with this beautiful picture while I go pull up these three things. So let's take a look at it. I mean, come on, y'all. Come on. How beautiful is that? So I'm going to leave that up there while I go grab these three things to tell you guys. Number one, guys, virtual tasting is having like a double pack. You guys know this. I know many of you said yesterday you've already ordered yours. So let's throw this up here. We are back to the stay home, drink wine situation for a lot of us. 2 virtual tasting packs in one for a great, great, great deal. Now that means next week's tasting wines are a mystery until Saturday. But at the point at which we reveal the wines, this deal doesn't work anymore for you. So guys, let's be honest. You know you're going to do both virtual tastings, so just go ahead and buy them both at the same time. You're going to get 2 extra wines on top of the 4 and 4 in order for you to drink while you're waiting on the virtual tastings, okay? This Saturday at 4, I'm actually going to join Chris and Catherine for part of it. We're sharing some of our natural wines, which I'm super passionate about and really excited to share with you guys, so don't miss it. Number 2, the day is finally here where we can do private virtual tastings for you, okay? One-on-one with your favorite William Chris team members. If you are interested in doing private virtual tastings, there is a link right there in the comments for you to click on, and you can fill out that form and we'll be in touch with you guys. How cool is that? Private virtual tasting. We are bringing the tasting that you would get at the winery to you, wherever you are, at your vacation house, in your living room, whatever, right? We're going to do that virtually with you. Private virtual tasting, PVT. Chris has got the acronym already. I love it. Last but not least, we're going to be right here tomorrow. So I'm going to put that picture back up there. Tomorrow is White Wine Wednesday, guys. You know, I'm doing Mouved Mondays, right? And White Wine Wednesdays, okay? Mouved Mondays and White Wine Wednesdays. So tomorrow, we're going to be drinking 18 Marsanne. 18 Marsanne, okay? Right here, 5 o'clock. Cheers to all you guys. Before I leave, Sarah's asking about the cost. Guys, this is going to depend on the setup and the wines and all that. That's why we want you to fill out the form. We'll reach out to you one-on-one and we'll talk to you about costs and all that. Some of it's going to depend on the wine and the setup and all that kind of stuff. So talk about customized experience. It's going to be phenomenal. Fill out that form. So that's it for today. Cheers to all of you. Today we're going to cheers to all the transit workers out there. I'm talking about like bus drivers, taxi drivers, train drivers that are still helping folks get from place to place. And a lot of times they're putting themselves out there in harm's way in many ways of contracting the virus. So like super, super thankful to those folks. So cheers to the transit workers. I will see you right here at 5 o'clock tomorrow for White Wine Wednesday. We are going to have a blast. I'm not telling you yet, but we're going to have another great virtual vacation on White Wine Wednesday. Cheers, guys. See you tomorrow.